In the early 19th century, a man took a weapon that every warrior on the southern African savanna had used for generations and decided it was wrong. The throwing assegai, a long spear designed to be hurled at enemies from a distance, was the standard weapon of the Nguni people. Every warrior carried it. Every military tradition on the region was built around it. Shaka Zulu looked at it and saw a problem. The moment you threw your spear, you were unarmed. You had traded your weapon for a chance at hitting someone who might simply step aside. He replaced it with the iklwa, a short, broad-bladed stabbing spear designed for close combat, named for the sucking sound it made when pulled from a wound. He paired it with a large cowhide shield trained to hook an opponent's shield and twist it, exposing the left side of the body for a single, decisive thrust. The engagement range shrank from distance to arm's length. The battle became personal. And in that personal engagement, the warriors Shaka trained were, repeatedly, devastating. This was not his only innovation. He abolished sandals, forcing his warriors to toughen their feet by running barefoot across the South African savanna, building endurance and speed that gave his forces a mobility advantage that conventional armies of the region simply could not match. He developed the impondo zankomo, the bull horn formation, a tactical structure that divided forces into 4 groups: the chest, which engaged the enemy frontally, 2 horns, which encircled them from both sides simultaneously, and a reserve, held back with their backs turned so they would not grow impatient watching the battle and rush in prematurely. These were not instincts, these were systems. Shaka was building something. Shaka kaSenzangakhona was born around 1787, the illegitimate son of KaSenzangakhona, chief of the small Zulu clan, and Nandi of the Langeni people. His parents' relationship violated custom, and both mother and son paid for it. He was born into shame and spent much of his childhood in exile with his mother, moving between clans, enduring mockery and rejection at nearly every stop. He returned to the Zulu only after his father's death, under the patronage of the Mfecane Confederation's powerful leader, Dingiswayo, who recognized his military ability and gave him command of a regiment. What happened next, over roughly a decade, was one of the most remarkable military and political transformations in the history of Southern Africa. Under Shaka's leadership, beginning around 1816, the Zulu clan grew from roughly 1,500 people into the nucleus of an empire. He absorbed neighboring clans, some through military conquest, others through alliance, and in some cases through the forced displacement of populations who would not submit. This period of disruption, known as the Mfecane, a Zulu and Sotho word meaning the crushing or the scattering, sent ripple effects across the southern African interior as displaced peoples fled, fought, and reorganized in response to the expansion of Zulu power. This is where honesty requires us to hold complexity. The Mfecane was not simply an abstract historical event. It involved the destruction of communities, the deaths of significant numbers of people, and the forced displacement of many more. The scale and direct attribution of the Mfecane's violence to Shaka specifically, as opposed to the broader dynamics of the era, is a subject of genuine historical debate among scholars. But the disruption itself was real, and many of its consequences were severe. We say this not to flatten Shaka into a villain and not to erase what was genuinely innovative and powerful in his leadership. We say it because accurate history is more valuable than a simplified hero story, and because the communities that experienced that disruption deserve to be part of the account. What is not in dispute is what Shaka built and how he built it. The military reforms were real and documented in detail by European traders and missionaries who encountered the Zulu Kingdom during Shaka's reign. He created a regimental system in which warriors lived together, trained together, and were organized by age into units that served the king directly rather than their home clans. A radical reorganization of military loyalty that gave him an army answerable to central authority rather than to dozens of individual chiefs. He standardized equipment, standardized tactics, and standardized training across an army that, at its peak, numbered in the tens of thousands. British officer and traveler Nathaniel Isaacs, who met Shaka directly in the late 1820s, wrote accounts describing warriors who could cover 50 miles a day on foot. Something Isaacs initially did not believe possible until he witnessed it personally. The combination of foot speed, tactical discipline, and close combat training produced a military force that, in its prime, was genuinely without peer in the region. Shaka was assassinated in 1828 by his half-brothers Dingane and Mfecane after a period in which his grief over his mother Nandi's death had reportedly led to increasingly erratic behavior, extended mourning periods imposed on the entire kingdom, restrictions on planting crops, and executions of those who appeared insufficiently sorrowful. His own commanders and family had grown uncertain of what came next. He was killed at approximately 40 years old, having built, from a small clan of 1,500, a military kingdom that would remain a power in southern Africa for decades after his death, and that would ultimately require the full mobilization of the British Imperial Army to defeat, and nearly defeat them even then. The Anglo-Zulu War of 1879, fought half a century after Shaka's death, ended at the Battle of Isandlwana with one of the most catastrophic British military defeats in the colonial era. Over 1,300 British and Allied soldiers were killed in a single engagement by a Zulu force using tactics that still bore the structural DNA of Shaka's reforms. The bullhorn formation, the speed, the disciplined close combat. All of it was still there, 5 decades and 1 assassination later, still winning battles against a colonial empire armed with modern rifles. We built that. We built a military system so fundamentally sound that it outlasted the man who invented it by 50 years and humiliated one of the most powerful armies in the world. Shaka kaSenzangakhona was born illegitimate, exiled, and mocked. He died at 40, killed by his own family. In between, he looked at a weapon every warrior had used for generations and decided it was wrong. Then he built something to prove it.